Welcome back, movie buffs. Today, we are diving into the 2025 movie, The Lost Bus. But before we begin, don't forget to hit subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss any of our heart-pounding movie breakdowns. The story starts on November 7, 2018, at 4 p.m. in Paradise, California. Kevin, a school bus driver, was finishing his route and dropping kids off after school. When he was done, he parked the bus at the depot. His boss, Ruby, reminded him that the bus still needed maintenance. Kevin asked if there were any extra shifts because he needed the money, but Ruby told him nothing was open. Kevin headed home. On the way, his doctor called and told him his dog's cancer had spread and that he needed to bring him in. When Kevin got home, his mom was there. His son, Sean, had come home sick. Kevin told him he needed to take school seriously. Sean shot back that Kevin hadn't. Kevin had dropped out when he found out he was going to be a dad, and he didn't want Sean to end up struggling the way he had. Sean ignored him and blasted his music. Kevin got irritated and told him to wait until he had responsibilities and bills to pay. The argument got heated and Sean yelled that he wished Kevin were dead. Later, Kevin took his dog to the vet and stayed with him through his last moments. He had raised him since he was a puppy. The next day, strong winds caused an electric line on a nearby hill to snap, and a fire started. The wind pushed it downhill fast. A red flag warning was already in place. Ruby told Kevin the mechanic planned to work on his bus that day, so he needed to return on time. Kevin took the bus out for his route as usual. Meanwhile, the fire kept growing. A truck driver saw it and called it in. Fire crews notified CAL FIRE, and 2 engines were sent out. The winds were dry and heavy. The firefighters could tell the fire started from the broken line, but reaching the spot was tough. The roads were narrow and twisted through the mountains. While Kevin was picking up kids, his mom kept calling. He didn't answer at first because he was driving. When he finally picked up, she told him Sean was getting worse. Right then, Kevin got a message telling him to finish the route and bring the bus back for maintenance. He said he would stop for fuel and return. He told his mom to check Sean's temperature. Out near the fire, the crews still couldn't reach the flames. There was no clear path, so they had to look for another one. All this information was passed up to CAL FIRE Division Chief Ray Martinez. Chief Ray was told there was another fire. This one was on Rim Road, north of Concow, far from the first fire. It had also started because of a power line. Ray got frustrated with the PG&E linemen and said they had given a red flag warning the night before and told them to shut the power off. He told them to shut down every line immediately. Right then, an engineer named Hopkins radioed Ray. He said he was in Concow and that something serious was happening. Hopkins suddenly saw spot fires popping up everywhere. They were spreading incredibly fast and the smoke made it hard to see. This area was also far from the other fires, and the power lines there had already been turned off. Ray took all this in and said it was actually one fire. It was all coming from the same damaged wire. The fire was growing at a terrifying speed. He sent his crews toward Concow. Ruby let all her drivers know about the fire and reminded them to keep listening to the radio. She told Kevin to get to the depot quickly, or he would miss his afternoon route because the bus still needed maintenance. But Kevin still had to stop and pick up medicine for his son. Meanwhile, Hopkins started helping people who didn't have cars. He loaded them into his truck so he could get them out. On the other side, Kevin got a call from Linda. She said Sean had been texting her, asking her to come get him. Kevin told her that wasn't needed. Sean was sick and he had already picked up his medicine. He said everything was fine and that he couldn't talk because he was working. Linda told him she was also at work and that she and Pete were supposed to fly to Colorado that night. Hearing that hurt Kevin, but he ended the call and reported the smoke he was seeing to his base. Ruby told him to ignore the smoke and bring the bus in fast, or she'll replace him with someone else. Meanwhile, Chief Ray was sending fire crews toward Concow, but he already knew they would get there too late. Hopkins could barely drive through the smoke and flames. Air tankers were sent in to fight the fire, but the wind was so strong that they couldn't hit the right areas. Ray told Hopkins to get to a bridge and take shelter in the water below it. Hopkins stopped his truck and told everyone with him to get into the water. They hurried in. The fire was closing in on them fast. Fire engines couldn't reach them because the roads were blocked. The flames kept spreading and soon reached the people standing in the water. Chief Ray tried to reach Hopkins, but there was no reply. Everyone feared they hadn't made it. Then a response finally came through. They were alive, but everyone with Hopkins was badly hurt. He reported that the fire was moving toward Paradise at a frightening speed. Back in Paradise, Kevin noticed fire trucks rushing past. He left Sean a voicemail saying he was sorry about the night before, that he had picked up his medicine, and that he would come home right after work. He mentioned the fire in Concow and told him not to worry and to keep an eye on the news. Chief Ray ordered evacuation warnings for several zones in East Paradise. But when Town Hall tried to send the alerts, they failed because of a signal error. At an elementary school, the staff decided not to wait any longer for an official order. They started calling parents themselves. Some parents worked out of town, so their children would need to be taken to another pickup point where they could be collected later. Kevin got another call from Linda. She said he was unreliable. Kevin admitted he had been wrong and that he hadn't realized how sick Sean really was. He didn't want to argue. She told him his life was a mess and that Sean didn't want to live with him. Kevin loved his son more than anything. Feeling emotional, he sent Sean another voice message saying he needed to know he was okay. Kevin decided to drive straight home instead of returning to the depot. Right then, Ruby told all the drivers that East Paradise was being evacuated. Any driver in that area had to leave immediately. If they had kids on board, they needed to take them out of town to the Chico depot. At the elementary school, parents rushed in to pick up their children. The ones whose parents couldn't make it were supposed to be moved to another school. Parents would pick them up from there. There were 22 kids left and they needed a bus to get them out. The principal called Ruby. Ruby asked all her drivers if anyone was nearby. No one was on that route except Kevin, who was already heading home. He suddenly had two choices: go to his son or help these children. He found himself saying no at first, but then he told Ruby he would take them. Ruby said they would handle the bus maintenance later and told him to get the kids out safely. Kevin arrived at the school. He wanted the children to get on the bus quickly, but their teacher, Mary, needed to keep them calm and organized. They were very young and she couldn't let them panic. She told them to form a line. Kevin told her to hurry and to understand how urgent the situation was. They eventually got all the children onto the bus. Kevin told Mary she would have to come with them. His job was just to drop off the kids, not look after them afterward. Mary told the principal to lock up without her and left with Kevin. Kevin wanted to take a different route, but Mary said they needed to follow the plan. At that moment, about 15 miles of traffic was backed up with people trying to get to Chico. Chief Ray returned to headquarters. He wanted to evacuate the whole area, but doing that would block the roads and stop fire engines from getting into town. A PG&E worker named Mark Rogers showed up. Ray told him to shut off all the power in town. Then Ray gave the order to evacuate everyone in town. Meanwhile, all communication between Ruby and Kevin suddenly stopped. They couldn't reach each other. Kevin's phone wasn't working either. His bus was the last one still in East Paradise. According to safety rules, all he had on board was a first aid kit and a fire extinguisher. Mary asked Kevin about himself. He told her he had only moved back a few months earlier, but had grown up here. Because they left the school late, they ended up stuck in traffic. Ruby reported to fire control that they had lost contact with one of their buses in East Paradise. Kevin changed his route. Mary said they should stick to the plan, but Kevin told her he would only be stuck in traffic if he stayed. The fire was moving toward them fast. The kids started crying because Kevin's driving scared them, but all he cared about was getting them back to their parents. Mary also began having trouble breathing because she had asthma. Back at base, Ruby got the order to evacuate. Even while leaving, she tried calling Kevin one last time, but nothing went through. On the bus, Kevin and Mary talked. Mary said she had been married for 19 years and had a 15-year-old son. She was supposed to pick him up, but she had come to help these kids instead. Her sister would get him now. Kevin and Mary just needed to get these children to safety. All the kids were terrified. Conditions in the area were getting worse every minute. Chief Ray told his team that this was no longer a wildland fire. It had become a town fire, and they needed to save as many people as they could. Kevin's bus got stuck at a roadblock. He tried calling Sean, but the call wouldn't go through. Mary asked if his family would get the evacuation alerts. Kevin admitted he hadn't registered them, so they wouldn't receive any notifications. His mom also didn't know how to drive. Then a house nearby caught fire. Mary moved the children away from the windows. Kevin told her to sit in the driver's seat. She didn't know how to drive, but she would have to for a moment. Kevin stepped out and spoke to the traffic officer. He told him he had a bus full of children. But the officer was stuck and he couldn't radio for backup. He needed to clear the road so fire engines could get through and fight the fire. Kevin started clearing traffic on his own. He walked from car to car, telling drivers to move over. Mary slowly brought the bus forward. Once there was space, Kevin climbed back into the driver's seat. They were only a minute away from the drop-off point. Mary joked that he would make a good traffic cop. The kids felt relieved. They thought they were about to see their parents. But when they reached the elementary school, it was gone. The building had completely burned down. Mary stepped off the bus to look around, but there was no one there. Kevin and Mary had no idea what to do next. Mary said they should take the kids to Chico, then come back later for their own children. Just then one of the girls got scared and curled up on the floor. Mary comforted her while Kevin drove them away from the area. Meanwhile, Chief Ray heard about Kevin's bus and learned that there were 22 children on board. He also heard that firefighters were having to cut through power lines that still had electricity running through them. Ray grew furious with PG&E and demanded to know why the lines were still live. The PG&E representative said the automatic shutoff was done, but turning off the manual switches was taking longer. Kevin and Mary had only 2 routes left to escape. One was extremely narrow with sharp U-turns that the bus could never make. They had to take the other route. A child named Toby spoke up and said they didn't even know where his mom was. He was terrified. Kevin had him come sit in the front seat. Kevin promised him they would get him back to his mother. But the route they chose wasn't safe either. Power lines were snapping and falling onto the road. Kevin drove as carefully as he could, trying to keep the children safe. Poles crashed down in front of them. Kevin steered the bus off-road, breaking through fences to keep going. When they reached the next road, it was completely blocked. Their only option now was the narrow road they had hoped to avoid. What they saw there was horrifying. People were burning in the streets. Looters tried to stop the bus. One man even had a gun. Kevin stopped him from climbing inside and turned the bus around. Meanwhile, Ruby arrived in Chico. All her buses were accounted for except Kevin's. Inside the bus, the children were thirsty and overheating. Smoke started coming through the AC vents, so they had to turn the AC off. Kevin drove into a park he remembered from his childhood. There was a path there that connected to the narrow road. A girl suddenly began having a panic attack. She needed water or she could collapse. They had to stop and look for something to drink. Mary told Kevin to stay with the children and she went out alone. She said that if the fire came, he needed to drive the kids away. Mary walked into the thick smoke searching for water. She found nothing at first and she was struggling to breathe because of her condition. Then she spotted some water bottles inside a house van. Kevin started yelling for her because explosions were going off nearby. Mary ran back with the bottles, climbed onto the bus, and Kevin drove them out of the park. Fire was everywhere. Kevin couldn't see any safe way out. The children were screaming. Through the thick smoke, he somehow found a path that led them forward. Back in Chico, Ruby was talking to the parents. She told them the children had been evacuated from the school, but no one had heard from them since the bus left. When parents learned a new driver was behind the wheel, they grew even more worried. Ruby tried to reassure them. She said she trusted Kevin completely and that they needed to trust him too. Kevin was now driving on the narrow road. There was barely any room on either side of the bus. Then people appeared, coming from the opposite direction. They blocked him and said there was fire up ahead. Kevin told them not to go back either because there was fire behind them as well. They answered that they had no choice and had to risk it. Now Kevin was stuck. He could not move forward or backward. He got off the bus and walked up to a ridge to look around. Fire surrounded him. He went back to Mary and said they had nowhere to go. Mary suggested they could try leaving on foot, but Kevin told her the kids would not last even 2 minutes out there. Mary asked if they were supposed to just sit and wait. Kevin told her this was the only spot that wasn't burning yet, and everywhere else was already on fire. Mary asked what would happen if the flames reached them and what would happen to the children. They had no answers. Kevin tore his shirt into strips, wet them, and used them to make little filters for the kids to breathe through. He taped over the AC vents to keep smoke from getting inside. Meanwhile, firefighters were running out of water. The hydrants nearby had no pressure. People were dying in their cars or running for their lives on foot. Chief Ray told his crews to focus only on saving people now. Inside the bus, everyone was struggling. Kevin stopped Mary from getting up so she would not lose her strength. He talked to the children himself and told them to stay away from the windows. He tried to distract them by talking. Some of them asked if it was getting dark. Kevin told them it only looked dark because the smoke was blocking the sun. Toby said he wanted his dad. Kevin told him his dad was trying as hard as he could to reach him. Mary whispered that maybe they should let the children sleep. Kevin said no, that they could not think like that. Mary opened up about her own life. She said she had only left Paradise once for a 2-week trip to Ohio. She thought she would always be safe here and that following the rules would keep her safe. She said that if she got out of this, she would start taking trips and she would take her son to Legoland or Africa. Kevin told her he had spent most of his life trying to stay away from Paradise. And now, all he wanted was a chance to build a life here. Kevin went on. He said that when he got the call to pick up the kids, he thought maybe he could earn a second chance if he got them out safely. But second chances don't always work the way we hope. He told Mary he had spoken to his father 28 years earlier, and that it ended in a fight. His dad had come at him the way he often did, and Kevin finally snapped. He yelled back, slammed the front door, cursed his father's name, and said he never wanted to see him again. Kevin said he even told his father he wished he were dead. A few years later, Kevin's life fell apart. And a few months ago, while he was working a night shift, his mom called and told him his dad was very sick. Kevin drove all night to reach him, but he arrived too late. His father had already passed away. Kevin said he had been late as a son, and now he felt late as a father too. He cried as he told this story. Right then, a fire started right beside the bus. Kevin grabbed the fire extinguisher and tried to put it out, but more fires were popping up. The extinguisher ran out. Kevin tried beating out flames with his clothes, but it was useless. The fire was too strong. He ran back to the bus, but it refused to start. He put Mary in the driver's seat, opened the hood, pulled out the air filter, and the engine finally came to life. Kevin now had to drive straight through the fire. Fallen burning trees blocked the road, and he had to weave around them. Fire surrounded the bus on all sides. The children screamed as Kevin kept going, driving with a burned hand. His courage paid off. They broke through the flames and made it out alive. Kevin drove the bus to the Chico depot. Parents rushed to their children. Toby stepped off the bus and Kevin wished him good luck. Mary thanked Kevin and they hugged. Everyone applauded them. Mary reunited with her family too. Kevin turned to Ruby and jokingly said it was time for maintenance. But Kevin still needed to find his own family. He didn't see their names on the lost and found table, so he searched the area. He finally found his mom, who had been brought there by a neighbor. Sean was with Linda. Kevin's mom told him it was for the best. After the fire, Kevin went back to his home. It had burned down completely. He found a charred photo of himself and Sean. Just then Sean walked up behind him. They hugged and Linda watched them from a distance. And that's where the story ends. That's a wrap on our breakdown of the 2025 movie, The Lost Bus. What do you think about this movie? Drop your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this recap, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss one of our thrilling movie analyses and deep dives. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay tuned for more edge of your seat content.